My name is Sarah, and this is my story, the story of how I fell in love with a man I was never meant to be with. I was just an ordinary girl, quiet, shy, and invisible to most people. I worked as a waitress in a fancy hotel, spending my days serving rich guests who never even looked at me. I didn't mind. I had accepted my life the way it was. But then one day I met him, Daniel Carter. Daniel was the kind of man people noticed the moment he walked in. He wasn't just rich, he had a presence. Tall, confident, and always dressed in expensive suits. He was the owner of the hotel, and yet he never acted arrogant. He had a quiet charm, the kind that made people respect him without him saying a word. The first time I saw him, I was serving coffee in the hotel's private lounge. I was nervous because I had heard he was strict about everything. My hand shook slightly as I placed the cup in front of him. He looked at me then, not just glanced but really looked at me. "What's your name?" he asked. I froze. No rich guest had ever asked for my name before. "Sarah," I stuttered. He gave a small nod, then turned back to his laptop. That was it. Nothing dramatic. But from that day, he always remembered my name. And that was the beginning of something I never expected. Days passed, and every time he visited the lounge, he would greet me. Sometimes he would ask small things, how my day was, if I liked working here. He wasn't overly friendly, just kind. I tried not to think too much about it. Why would a man like him ever notice a girl like me? But then something changed. One night after my shift, I was walking home when it started raining heavily. I had no umbrella and my clothes were getting soaked. Just as I was about to run for cover, a black car stopped beside me. The window rolled down and there he was. "Get in," he said. I hesitated. "Sir, It's raining, Sarah." "Just get in." I had no choice, so I sat inside. Car smelled expensive, and for a moment I felt out of place. "You don't have a car?" he asked. I shook my head. "I walk home." He frowned. "That's not safe." I didn't know what to say. Why was he worried about me? I was just a waitress in his hotel. When we reached my apartment, I expected him to just drop me off, but before I could step out, he spoke again. "Sarah." "Yes." "Do you ever wish for more?" His question caught me off guard. I looked at him, unsure how to answer. Did I wish for more? Course I did. But I had never dared to think about it seriously. I don't know," I finally whispered. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good night, Sarah." That night I couldn't sleep. Why was he asking me such things? What did he mean? After that, he started appearing more often. He would find excuses to talk to me, to be around me. Slowly, I started seeing a different side of him, not just the powerful businessman, but the man who carried deep loneliness in his eyes. One evening, he invited me to dinner. "Not as your boss," he clarified, "just as a friend." I wanted to say no. I knew this was dangerous. But my heart was already too weak to resist. At dinner, he was different, more relaxed, more open. He told me about his life, how money had given him everything except true happiness. I told him about my simple dreams, how I wanted to study, to do something more than just serving coffee. "You can do anything, Sarah," he said, his voice serious. "You're more than what you think." I didn't know why, but his words made my heart ache. No one had ever believed in me like that before. That night, I realized the truth. I was falling for him. And it scared me more than anything. We tried to keep our feelings hidden, but the world wasn't blind. People started noticing. My colleagues whispered about me, jealous and cruel. "She's just using him for his money," they said. But the worst came from his own family. His mother, a powerful and elegant woman, called me to meet her. She didn't yell, didn't insult me. She simply smiled and said, "Sarah, be smart. My son can never be with someone like you. Walk away before you ruin his reputation." I wanted to cry, but I held myself together. I love him, I whispered. She sighed. Love is not enough in our world. I wanted to fight for us. But when Daniel's business started facing problems and the media began targeting me as his gold digger girlfriend, I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't be the reason he lost everything. So I left. I quit my job and disappeared from his life without a goodbye. Months passed. I tried to move on, but every night I dreamed of him. I missed him with every breath, but I convinced myself I had done the right thing. Then, one evening as I walked home, a familiar black car stopped in front of me. The door opened and he stepped out. "Did you really think I'd let you go that easily?" he asked, his voice full of emotion. Tears filled my eyes. "Daniel, No," he interrupted. "I don't care about my family, the media, or what anyone says. I care about you." He took a step closer. "Do you love me, Sarah?" I couldn't lie. "Yes," I whispered. He exhaled sharply, then pulled me into his arms. Then that's all that matters. We still had obstacles. The world didn't suddenly accept us. But Daniel fought for me, and for the first time I let myself believe I was worthy of love. Years later, as I stand beside him, no longer a shy waitress but a woman who finally found her worth, I realize that love isn't about being from the same world. It's about choosing each other again and again, no matter how hard it gets. And Daniel? He still looks at me like I'm the only thing that matters. Because in the end, love isn't about where you come from. It's about where you're meant to be. And I was always meant to be his. Two hearts,